I'm Clinton McIver, chef owner of Amaru restaurant.
My name's Tim Williams and I'm the CEO of Bureaux Collective.
My name's Cos and I'm the CEO of Inverto.
My name is Marco Tovazzi. I am a winemaker.
I'm Damien Mulvihill.
My name is Mark Simpson, two creative directors of Design Office.
Because I spend most of the time in the vineyard during the year, it's very inspiring, to see all of the stages of the plant, from winter pruning, like all throughout spring, and seeing, the shoots growing and the bunches ripening. So I've got a really strong connection with the vines and therefore with the grapes that they produce. I think that the philosophy of the business, philosophy of my winemaking is very simple. I'm not trying to change the characteristic of the grapes and just trying to guide the wine developments, trying not to intervene too much on the wine. I want my wine to be not too overwhelming. They're easy to drink. They leave you satisfied and they make you taste the freshness of the grapes. I think that Melbourne is the right environment to do what we are doing because people are very willing to support local small businesses. Empty Wines started in 2017, 2 years ago. It's always very scary to start your own business when you don't know where it's gonna go and you don't know how much money you wanna invest in it. Yeah, it's all a bit scary, but yeah, we decided to give it a crack. We made our very first wine, is a Sangiovese from ATTIQUE. And it was a very, very good result because the wine was rated 93 points on the Wine Business magazine by a very influential wine critic. From 4 barrels of wine, we expanded our range and also the volume of it. And now we have roughly 16 barrel wine, so it's a big jump up. It's much more challenging right now, but the wine community in Melbourne in general is pretty supportive of up-and-coming winemakers and very small growing businesses. So yeah, it's challenging, but it's very stimulating at the same time.
I believe that Melbourne has a culture of craftsmanship. You meet people in Melbourne and they'll have something that they're particularly passionate about and that they are unashamedly trying to be awesome at. There are some cities where I just think they have a certain feel and a certain ethos, and I think Melbourne, as a sort of creative cultural capital of Australia, has a definite craftsmanship vibe.
It's a culture of food and drink that is, I think, one of the best in the world.
We have great restaurants and we have great cafes. That brings a real richness to the culture here, but our level of understanding of coffee itself and how it's produced and who produces it and what it means to produce coffee is a long way behind where it needs to be. There is so much about the coffee industry that is like really antiquated, you know, really based on like 1940s, 50s approach to manufacturing, distribution, supply. We'd like to see that turned around and improved.
Melbourne's culinary scene is pretty special. I think it really stacks up against some of the major food cities around the world. Food itself, for me, it's culturally so diverse. I mean, you know, it doesn't matter where you come from. I think food has a universal language. Amaru means beautiful place. And basically, I wanted that to reflect the feeling that you get when you walk in the doors. When we talk about modern Australian or contemporary Australian, it's a pretty exciting city to eat out in Melbourne.
We often talk about the importance of how spaces feel being more important than how they look. And obviously they need to be beautiful, but it's that emotional feeling you get from a space with that resonance, and how do you make spaces that people will just want to hang out in.
Design Office is an architectural and interior design practice. We have a team of 12 of us all together, specifically keep things to that sort of scale because we're very hands-on in all the projects ourselves in that role. We really work across a huge range of scales and sectors, and that's really important to us.
For us, good design is always a balance of the function and the emotional.
Who's it for? Why would they be here? What's the actual reason for being in terms of its function and how it's going to be received and engaged with by the user? Melbourne has an energy and an attitude that I really like, and there's something that's not too formal about it and doesn't take itself too seriously, but actually delivers at a really high level. It has a spirit. It's a really difficult thing to make tangible. We work with a lot of people who genuinely want to create something that is new and innovative.
We're a community roastery for Australian cafes who want to start roasting their own coffee. In terms of where inspiration comes from, it's really looking at like an entrenched way of thinking, and just because it's always been done in one particular way doesn't mean that's the way that we need to continue doing it. The idea for Bureaux came out of working in coffee for quite a while. I worked for a number of roasteries in the UK and also in Los Angeles, and that took me up to about 3 years ago when I really felt like it was time to do something for myself, to try and bring a whole new concept and a whole new idea to the coffee industry. Building a roastery is pretty expensive. If you're a cafe doing 30, 40, 50 kilos of coffee a week, it's sort of out of your grasp. What we thought we could do is actually build a structure where people with ideas can come and have access to a roastery for the amount of time that they actually needed. Some of those ideas could actually be tested and come to light. Coffee culture in Melbourne and where it's going. I think we're going to see a really hard few years. The bubble is going to burst. There's a lot of people who have opened cafes in that real short-term speculative space. And they're having a really hard time selling them right now. I think we are likely to see a lot of the speculators and tourists in coffee maybe move out and put their time and energy somewhere else. And I hope that out of the back of that, what we see is people who are really interested in coffee and hospitality and great customer service, see them remain and thrive. And I think the Melbourne coffee and cafe scene will be a lot richer for it. The challenge in Melbourne is how do you bring a new idea and get people excited about it without making them feel like everything that's been happening for the last 50 years is wrong? And how do you build a community and build interest and build excitement when people kind of feel like they've already got coffee solved? The way that London coffee bloomed was through community and through events and sharing of information and a lot of the barriers between businesses being very low. So that's a big part of what we're interested in doing, trying to get that community interested in asking questions and participating. And I think a big part of that is us putting ourselves forward and sort of being as open book as we can.
I think Melbourne has a big depth of talent. It's a city that has a lot of tech companies, a lot of creative companies, and so we feel that there's definitely lots of networks in different spaces for whatever they are, software engineers or creatives, and I think that's a big draw card. Envato is a global platform for creative projects, and we cater especially to professionals, so professional designers who might be working in an agency or freelancing. Maybe they're doing a flyer for a client or an advertisement or a website, and we have a creative community around the world, tens of thousands of them, who make building blocks for those projects. They're all like time-saving things that help creative projects get done faster. We've been going for 13 years now. Myself, my wife, and my best friend, we're all designers. So we started a company that was by designers for designers. We had this mentality of like, well, hey, how can we provide a platform where creatives can work on stuff which they are then able to earn a living from? We are a purpose-led company, so to this day we've never taken investment. We're still founder-owned and led, and I think that's helped us stay focused on our purpose, which is sort of being that by designers for designers kind of company. So we think of community earnings as like a key metric for the company. That's the way we measure ourselves, is how many authors, the creatives who are on our platforms, how many of them are earning a living, how much have they seen in their earnings in total. And we're proud to say that we have seen over 700 million US go out to these creatives, which is kind of a weirdly mind-boggling number. I still remember when there was just 3 of us, and now it's like, it's a lot of zeros. It's very strange. It's very typical in sort of startup culture to say, oh, we're going to change the world. I don't think we're not showing up at work and changing the world. Like, we're a creative platform. We help like amazingly talented creative people earn a living online. They probably could find other ways to earn a living online without us. I just like to think that we're going to do a super good job of being that provider. Very early on, we had this idea of flexibility in our culture, and I think throughout the years we've just like leaned into that. And so these days people can start or leave flexibly. They can work from home as much as they wish. They can work from overseas if they want. There's like lots of like business benefits. You know, you get to hire better people. Your ability to attract talent is really high. Your ability to retain people is better. Your brand exposure is better. So I think just taking this one concept of flexibility and then applying it in different ways, I think has really led to a culture that has a good work-life balance. When I look through our results and things that people say draw them to Envato, work-life balance is like way up at the top, which is good. I think for me as a founder, as an entrepreneur, I like the idea that I've started a company where people have work-life balance. I don't believe that anyone gets to their deathbed and is like, I wish I'd worked more. So I would rather not be the person who inspired hundreds of people to work more. Not that I don't want them to work hard, don't get me wrong. Like, you know, we come here to do a good job, but it'd just be nice to keep that contextualized in the broader picture of things, that it's a job.
One of the biggest things I think in terms of quality of life is to be able to walk from the city to here, and actually to often, with Melbourne, the weird way it is, frequently bump into people on the way to the studio and back from the studio, and that day can be that unstructured. I think parts of our lives have to be quite structured because of the studio, and I really love the fact that Melbourne is particularly good at kind of the spontaneous, let's go and have a glass of wine, and actually bumping into someone on the way, just doing something sort of without too much planning that I really love about it. When something is created, it can stay for a long, long time in Melbourne and be popular for all of that time. And it's less about something being fashionable, which I think does tend to happen in places where you've got to be the new thing, you've got to make a scene, and then there's another new thing that comes along.
Melbourne is a hospitality town. I think community is often driven by hospitality. And those laneways is, the beginnings of bringing residents and community into Melbourne CBD. And I think it's that understanding of good hospitality that can be the centre point or the starting point of a community that can then sort of flourish and grow.
I was working at Bureaux for about 4 years, and then I decided that I didn't really want to go and work for someone else anymore. I really wanted to establish myself as a chef and a business owner. We've got some fantastic restaurants in the city. Mostly I like the casual market of restaurants around Melbourne. You can go and eat really, really well. Food that's absolutely delicious, cooked by some young chefs with a lot of passion. Some of my best dining experiences are at super casual places that's got a real identity, super personal and genuine. You go in and you feel that energy. I think that's really special.
Melbourne's fascinating in that it's not a small city, but somehow its approach feels really tangible and really humane, and you feel like you're really a part of a community.
I think there's like a degree of approachability with people in general here that maybe you wouldn't get in a city like London. People are very up for a chat and happy to meet for coffee and talk and get things going. That's why a city like London can be a really difficult place, because it has those communities, but it takes a long time to break into them and to kind of penetrate the British persona and become part of that community.
I'm a big fan of supporting new places that open up. I think maybe it's because I am an entrepreneur. Every time I see a new place open, I'm like, I hope you make it. I mean, small businesses like cafes, they tend to tank all the time. And so I figure sometimes they need a boost at that beginning. So I will start trying to go to new places for a bit, give them some life.
It's a very progressive city, I think, for the kind of willingness of including people from all over the world, from many different cultures, and make them feel they are at home.
There's a lot of exposure to art, good dining experiences, people who are just sort of like-minded and like to explore sort of new things as well, and I think that really, really does rub off.
The sense that people can create and can test things and can make mistakes and can get it wrong, and that there's a culture and a dialogue for doing that is really healthy for a city.